Oh, hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. This time we're catching up with the Ferrari F40 restoration, and I'm here at Cheshire Prestige Paintworks and we'll see what Ryan has been up to and the team here. And if you do like the channel, please remember to subscribe because it does make a difference. Okay, let's see what Ryan's been doing. Ryan.
Hello, Ian.
Hello.
You all right?
Yes, yes, yes. You?
Good, thank you very much.
Well, it's looking very red.
Yep.
I presume this is a good thing.
That's what we wanted.
Mind you, we have seen some other F40s that have been creatively changed to other colours over the years.
Yeah.
But this is, it's looking, joking apart, it's looking absolutely stunning. You've done an amazing job. And this is out of the gun, isn't it?
This was painted 2 days ago. Car, middle of last week.
Right.
And so yeah, it's all fresh.
There's been no polishing, buffing, rubbing, sanding, anything. Yeah, looks fantastic. So, could you just talk us through a bit?
Yeah, I mean, as we discussed in the earlier videos, it was a really straight car, so there's not been a load of repair work. It just had the little blow-ins here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, so it wasn't really a lot for us to address. Loads of chips, loads of little cracks. Found some interesting things out on the car where they've not even prepped them up properly and the paint's flaking off with your nail, which is quite cool.
Right.
Yeah, lots of masking tape left over from the factory.
Now, you mentioned this.
Yeah.
In fact, if we go to the back end,
yeah,
we can actually...
There's one bit there staring at us.
As we're here.
This one?
Right. And that, you reckon that's actually under the gel coat?
It's laminated in, yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in order to get rid of that, you'd have to scrape.
I've got to scrape a bit of the resin off. Yeah, see it here. Yeah, it's actually in part of it.
I mean, how incredible.
Yeah, that's factory masking tape.
But there's also a couple of other bits like that on the car.
Yeah, there's a few.
And you can age it by the fact that it's the texture.
It's gone amber. It's almost, you know.
Yeah,
and
masking tape, if you leave it on it for a long length of time, it's actually very difficult to get off.
Yeah, it goes like concrete, you can't get it off.
But particularly if it's got gel coat sprayed over the top.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was quite an interesting part of the bigger Ferrari factory history, this car at the time, because the 288 GTO was a cul-de-sac. They banned Group B after a fatal accident.
Yep.
With a Lancia 037 from memory. And then Enzo Ferrari was obviously very old at the time. I don't know how old he was, but well into his 80s for sure. And he had a word with one of his very clever engineers, Nicola Materazzi, and they decided, because the 288 GTO was such a runaway train, they couldn't make enough of them. They ended up making 270 odd. They suddenly realised that it was a money spinner. So that's why they eventually agreed on 400 of these.
Right.
So they were a very, very limited production car.
Yep.
And Enzo Ferrari said to Nicola, right, we can make 400 of them. So what we're seeing here is, I mean, there's no nice way of saying this. It's sort of thrown together a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they ended up making, whatever it was, 1,200.
Yeah.
About the same as they did for the whole Daytona production run, actually. What you're doing here is doing a sensitive, I mean, there are plenty of people who would say, well, get rid of that, and that.
It's really hard. You have to back off a lot.
Exactly.
And just leave, like, the overspray on the clamshells that everyone knows where it should be. I've had to mask that up on its own, so like keep that there, and then mask it properly as we normally do to paint into, demask, then take that back off to leave the overspray that was there from factory, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so we're not added to it.
Yes.
That's the original overspray that was done in the first place.
And the temptation, I mean, a lot of people restoring an F40, the temptation is them, and we had this conversation with Tony Willis, of course, at the time, is for people to just paint over it and say, oh, that looks awful.
And the other thing is they overpaint them. So you've got a car that's got a lot of factory paint on anyway. So when we were doing this, this whole bottom section here had been double coated. The car itself, so the from the swage line up, these quarters, the roof had been double coated and one door had been double coated from factory. So in the pictures we've sent you when we've rubbed it all down, you'll see when we were blocking it off, the paintwork, we're trying to get down to sort of almost original factory primer where we're breaking through, hence the pink spots all over. So I know a lot of people when they have these done, they sort of key up the existing paint and apply more. So then you've got double the thickness, and sometimes like this one has had double the factory paint in areas, you've got triple the thickness, and people want to see this carbon print back through on the paintwork after they've been painted. So you're not helping the matter by coating over coating over coating, because it's got to go all through all that paint for it to sink back in. So we've blocked off as much as we can back to original factory primer, a couple of light coats of the pink primer that we had matched, and then apply normal coats back on.
Right.
So in theory, it's pretty close to factory paint in terms of its depth.
I'm making assumptions here, but eventually, after you've blocked and prepared this beautifully, eventually it might start sinking back.
It will definitely, yeah. When we had it on baking there at 55, we've not gone to 65, 70 with this, just because we don't want things to happen. But when we baked it at 55, it started pulling in already, and it started let go again. So the car's been left a week and a half now already. By the time, I think, when we flat and polish that, and when you're polishing it, you're applying heat back into the process anyway, we might see some of it start coming through anyway.
Right.
But it might be a full summer period, hot day, outside.
All of a sudden.
You'll get it.
Hello.
It'll be there. Yeah.
Right. Now, you touched on something there. You mentioned that the oven, you set the oven at 55 degrees C.
Yep.
And we know from experience of Lamborghini LM002 doors or whatever it is, where it's non-steel or non-aluminium, i.e. fiberglass, composite, whatever, carbon fiber, you have to be careful with the temperature for the reasons you're explaining.
Yeah.
So what would you normally, if this was a steel-bodied car, what would you set the oven at, for example?
As soon as we finish painting, we let it run for 5 to 10 minutes at the normal painting temperature, which is, we paint around 26, 27 degrees, 28 sometimes, thereabouts. And then we increase that to 40, which is called a flash-off time, for about 20, 25 minutes. And then we go for a full bake after that, normally around 65 degrees C, for about an hour.
65 degrees?
Yeah.
And you daren't do that with this because it will cause all sorts of unsavoury things to happen, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure this is the type of thing I find very interesting. It's the detail, isn't it?
Yeah. 58 degrees C, surface temperature, fiberglass. I know this is carbon, but fiberglass reforms.
Right.
So we've had a few repairs to do on this, which we've infrared lamped up at the time, but then we just want to allow that all to level itself out. You don't want to force it at this point, is what I'm saying.
Right. Very interesting. I mean, but those are the sort of lessons you either learn from somebody else or the hard way.
You learn the hard way, normally. Yeah.
Yes. Oops.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
But this is so we're sort of being extremely careful to maintain the original. But go back to my earlier point. Because they were only going to make 400 of them. I say only. They were very hand-built.
Yep.
And they kept sort of ratcheting up to 1,200 cars.
Yeah.
But they never particularly, because they were concentrating on lightweight and because it was cutting-edge technology in some respects with the carbon, etc. They didn't always apply the same quality control as they would have to a normal production car.
No, it's the first time they've probably been through it. The other thing to bear in mind is the mould that they originally made these from, if they indicated that they were making 400 cars, and then they've ended up making 1,200 cars, that mould would degrade over time as well. So you might find the later cars have got more prep work than the early cars.
Yes, very good. That
makes sense.
Yes. Okay, and you were talking about this area here. You reckon? Well, I'll let you explain.
Yes, I think because they were doing this type of thing for the first time, there were certain factors that they obviously weren't happy with at the factory, and they've overcoated it. So on these top quarter panels here, these have been overcoated. That came out right first time round by the looks of the pictures we've done.
Right.
What the top of one of the doors had definitely been double coated at the factory.
Right. So what you mean by double coating is they spray the print primer on, then they put the red
They put
top
the red
coat,
gloss on, yeah.
and then somebody in quality control's gone, not happy about that, and they've repainted it at the factory without repriming it.
Yeah, straight on. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And that wouldn't have been done at any other time, otherwise.
No, because I can tell when I'm rubbing it down, it's the same product on the rest of the car. So it's coming off the same. You can smell it. It's the same stuff. There was some areas on the clamshell and on the back end, on both corners really, where it had little blow-ins. Those have been base coat and lacquered up. You can tell with that because you get like this white halo around it. But on those items there, those panels there, those have been the same paint, exactly the same as it was done in the rest of the car. It's just they've been overcoated, which tells me they've not been happy with certain aspects of it and they've coated it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've got, again, we've got the numbers everywhere, haven't we?
Yeah.
Matching.
Yeah.
586, I think it is.
568. Yeah.
So if we look at the likes of this rear clam, I mean, again, this is a stunning finish. Now, you must be delighted with this.
I'm really happy with how it's come out here.
I mean, do they always come out like this?
Not every job, no. You want them all to come out like this one. Yeah. The less manipulation at the end, flattening and polishing, the better, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. No,
And obviously, there's lots of little nooks and crannies on this where you can't get a polisher in. You know, imagine getting your polisher in there and you're flattening down here because there's a bit of dirt
straight
in
through
it.
the paint.
And in these knacker ducts, you know, so you want those as wet and as glossy as possible out the gun.
Yeah. And we've got all the right numbers in all the right places,
On
haven't
that
we?
side there.
There it is.
568.
Yeah, 568.
Yeah.
Right in the indented in the substrate, and that's essentially all over it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got another bit.
Got a nice bit of masking tape down here that's laminated in along here, which might be difficult to see.
Yeah,
Which is in there.
And that's actually been there from.
That's from new. Yeah, that's
incredible.
It's been there a while, that one. Yeah, some factory runs in the pink primer when it's been hung upside down. We've sanded all this back now to put the black coating on. You can see the runs here.
Right, so that would have been upside down.
Upside down, do the black, do under the black under the arches, because we're going to do the same way.
Right, and so those are original Ferrari runs.
Pink.
It's almost a shame we couldn't leave them in.
I
Really.
know.
Or am I being too?
That's probably too far.
Is this a bridge too far?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's always a judgment call with these things. What do we keep? What do we not? Etc.
No.
But the fact remains, this is a beautifully original car.
Yeah.
It really is.
We've done all the black. We've not done the black on this yet, but on the car in particular, we've masked it exactly as was. We've just done a nicer job of it. But a lot of people I see online are moaning about these here on other cars. They're really, really poor in terms of the finish, to a point where a lot of it's hand brushed in.
Really?
Yeah. So obviously this is all nice as it should be now, and painted.
Well, talking of hand brushing in, we noticed some bits on the frame here, didn't we?
Yeah. This has all been hand brushed here.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. There. You see that little brush mark there?
Yes.
Look at that.
Some here.
There.
Again, do we make that perfect, or do we just leave it?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because on the A posts where the hinge mounts are, a lot of that had been brushed back in.
Right.
I think they must have got a lot of overspray in that area and then just brushed it back in black where it needs to be black again.
And you were also mentioning, talking of A posts, that this wasn't really prepared.
This bit on the front edge here, this little panel here, riveted in. No, it was shiny carbon underneath.
So they hadn't keyed it to make the paint
that's why it was
stick.
heavily stone chipped in that area there, because there was no adhesion.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to sound too derogatory about Ferrari's finest of the late 80s.
No.
But it was, I mean, hand-built cars. It's amazing. I'm going to generalise. It's amazing how ratty hand-built cars actually are when you start taking them apart.
Yeah, very agricultural.
all the manufacturers that we think were fantastic, when you actually look at some of the workmanship under the skin, it is quite shocking, actually.
Yeah.
For hand built, read pretty awful.
But then on the opposite, you get amazing engineering at the same time. It's just weird how you get this. Well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, let us not forget, this is a stunning car.
Yeah.
It is a supercar. It was the supercar of the late 80s, really.
Yeah.
This and the Porsche 959, which of course was its rival, really, although they couldn't have been more different from an engineering point of view.
No.
But Ryan, it's looking fantastic. It really is. Hopefully, we've struck the balance right between this quandary of originality versus.
Yeah, it's hard because you're having to back off a little bit.
Yes.
On certain aspects.
Yes.
Because they want that there, you know.
Yeah.
It's how roughly, you know, the numbers are scribed in here. You know, it's a die grinder. 568, that'll do. You know, things like that. Whereas you'd like to redo it all nice and neat, all the same font, all, you know. No, 568.
Yeah. And leave the overspray on the inside.
And leave all the overspray, yeah.
Well, here we have some rather fetching pink headlamp pods and mirror covers. And this is the original. You had this mixed up, didn't you, by Leckler?
Yeah, Leckler matched it for us, yeah.
And this is what they would have had on them from the factory.
That shade of pink primer, yeah.
And you've looked at a lot of F40s that have been restored, and you've told me that they've used white and grey primer instead of that.
Yeah.
Does that have an effect on the final red finish?
It can, because red, anyone who paints red will know that it's semi-translucent. You almost have to put a ground coat on for coverage reasons.
Right.
Like if you break through primer, you'll have to put like 10 coats of red there to cover the bit where you've broke through, and it'll take 4 next to it to show the same colour.
Seriously?
Yeah, so it's called like a ground coat almost. So the way red looks through, because it is almost semi-translucent, the pink ground coat primer will change the colour if it was done over grey. So if you painted a grey primer, a white primer and a pink primer, and you did 5 coats of red, 5 coats of red, 5 coats of red, they would look very slightly different.
Obviously the people watching are going to be looking through this through the lens of a camera, but this is a stunning shade of red, actually.
Yeah.
It is an incredible shade of red. So this may contribute to that.
Yeah.
It really is an incredibly vibrant red. Fantastic. So, and there's no weight in these.
No. Nothing. There's nothing. The spoiler's the same.
And this is obviously the rear under tree.
Yeah. We've got to do all the black on this yet. So,
right.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to leave the overspray.
We've masked that off. Masked the original overspray off. Masked it properly. Painted into it, and then removed the masking to leave the overspray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, that is absolutely fantastic. You are doing world-class work. You really are.
Thank you, Iain.
Which is what we want. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Well, that concludes another Tyrrell Classic Workshop video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we will be back with something else very soon.